Hello everyone. Thank you all for joining again. I'm Nashra and I am a master's student of cognitive science at IIT Gandhinagar. Now I and another of our PhD scholar Gaurav will be presenting some of the instruments from two of our labs, Control of Learning and Action acronym COLA and Brain and Informative acronym Brain Lab. We are really thankful to Gandinagar for granting us the permission for these demonstrations. We'll be playing this video and you'll see some polls coming up on your screen while we are playing the demonstration. It would be really
Sure,
great.
there is a lag.
We'll be taking questions after the video has been played. You can leave your comments and questions in the chat window. I think we can begin now.
Sorry for this, we are having some technical difficulties. We'll resume in a while.
brain lab, we have several instruments. Here is a demonstration of electroencephalography. For most experiments which require EEG, we require two computers, one for EEG data acquisition and other to present the stimuli to the participants.
Please fill in the poll, people, everyone.
Everyone. Now we'll show you how to handle and place the EEG cap on the participant. We require distilled water, potassium chloride, and shampoo. We mix all these three together, 1 liter distilled water with KCl and shampoo. So we have actually three 128 channel high density geodesic caps. It has a lot of electrodes which you can see, 128 of them. So we have three sizes of them: 56 to 58 centimeter cap, the medium is 54 to 56 centimeter, and another 51 to 54 centimeter. In order to place the cap on the head, we take the circumference of the head through an inch tape. We take the middle part, the part in between the eyebrows, the nasion, it's called the nasion, and to all way around the head. So we get an idea of the size of the head. We take the cap and then we dip the cap in the solution before we start our experiment. So we need to mark our participant's head to denote the middle point in the head to place the cap according to the CZ position. We take the inch tape, we measure it from the nasion, the point here, to the anion, the behind, and we put like a cross in the middle. Then we take it from the sides, from one ear, and then we put the other mark, which is a cross. This denotes our center point, CZ. We will place the CZ electrode on this point. The cap needs to be held delicately. It can break easily, and we place one of our fingers locating the CZ in the center, on the central electrode basically, and we place it on the head. So you can see the careful placing of the cap on the mannequin. This cap is of the large size. We strap it around nicely around the face. We take this adapter of the EEG cap and we attach it to the amplifier of our EEG. You can see it next to the display monitor. It can get attached there, and this amplifier transfers the analog to digital data. Then we can see it in the data acquisition computer on the other side. You can see the computer live and see the what electrodes are working and what aren't working, or if there is a placement issue or something like that, it denotes there. So this was how you place the gap. You can record the EEG activity as well and see it live on the monitor, data acquisition monitor. This is how it appears, and you can calculate whatever you want to after you have collected the data based on your requirements, based on the requirements of the experiment. You can get ERPs or oscillations like alpha, beta, delta, gamma waves, and then you can analyze it through EEG lab toolbox in MATLAB, which we use here. Or EGI also provides some software which is very basic level, and you can use that as well for analyze our data. We can use EEG for various purposes. Like in our lab, we have used it for projects related to cortical entrainment to music, brain computer interface, neuromarketing, and decision making.
Hello everyone, I am Gaurav Panthi, PhD student at the Control of Learning and Action Lab, in short, COLA Lab, IIT Gandhinagar. At the COLA Lab, we work on understanding the mechanisms of human motor learning and control using psychophysical and brain stimulation techniques. In this session, I would like to briefly explain about the tools which we use in COLA Lab to understand human movements.
The poll is up, guys.
first lab device which I'm going to talk about is digitizing tablet system to record hand position and trajectories. This system consists of a large digitizing tablet and mirror mounted of the tablet and a HDTV placed horizontally above the mirror. During the experimental task, participants sit facing the digitizing tablet and use a handheld stylus to make reaching movements on it. Direct vision of the hand is blocked by means of mirror mounted over the tablet. Direct uh, hand position shown to the participant by cursor feedback reflected on the mirror. So in the video we are showing a simple point to point reaching task. Participants make fast reaching movements from one point to another point. A cursor feedback shows the hand position. In the three trials, the cursor position and hand position is matched, and after three trials, we showed a mismatch between actual and cursor motion. And as you can see, uh, the participant struggles making straight movements, and they eventually learn slowly over trials. The second lab device which I'm going to talk about is an KinArm endpoint robot. We use this device to induce uh, forces on the arms while participants make horizontal movement using robotic handheld manipulum. By inducing forces, we aim to understand how the brain tries to compensate for the external forces on our arm while making reaching movements. We can also use it to understand movement coordination between two arms. In the video, we are showing a spring task. We have simulated spring dynamics using robots. As you can see, the participant holding the manipulum, the participant is trying to bring two hands of the robot either together or apart from each other, and the participant feels as if it is pressing or pushing the actual spring. The third device which I'm going to talk about is transcranial direct current stimulation. In short, we call TDCS. This is a non-invasive brain stimulation device that we use to understand the role of different cortical brain regions in various behavioral aspects. It uses very weak direct current of around 2 milliamperes to inhibit or enhance the activity of targeted brain areas using scalp electrodes. In this video, we are using a 1020 system caps to help place the electrodes on the scalp of the targeted location. The electrode stimulates a brain area called motor cortex, which is mainly responsible for body movements. The device has many controls for changing amplitude, frequency, and signal type. The fourth lab device, which I'm going to talk about, is transcranial magnetic stimulator. In short, we call TMS. The TMS is also a non-invasive brain stimulation technique, which is used to understand again to study the role of cortical brain areas in different behavioral tasks. It mainly uses a magnetic field to either inhibit or facilitate a targeted brain area activity. In this video, a magnetic coil is placed on the scalp at the targeted cortical brain area, motor cortex, and a pulse has been generated by the experimenter. Depending on the frequency of the stimulation, it can either facilitate or inhibit the activity of the targeted brain area. In this video, I am stimulating a particular brain area that represents the movement of the right hand thumb. Pulse has stimulated the brain, the activity of neurons responsible for the changes in the thumb movements, and this is uh, you can also notice the twitch, small twitch in the thumb. Thank you.
Thank you all for watching this. Now we can take in some of our questions. I think there is an echo in my voice.
Hi, Nasha, it should be fine now. Can you try
Okay.
again?
Okay, great.
Okay, great.
So yeah, so we have a few questions. Some of them have been answered. So yeah, so you put marks on the head of the real person also. What about the hairs? So yeah, I answered that. It is actually preferred to. We can use things like a chalk or something and not a permanent marker to mark the hair. What are your thoughts on the open BCI hardware and software stack in the field of neuroscience research? I mean, whose thoughts are you asking for? Like, it depends. I mean, open BCI hardware and software stack and neuroscience, it depends upon the work, kind of work you are doing, right? Like, that is what, if your work requires that, then yes. Isn't some oil used in EG for better conductivity? Okay, Luke answered that. Silica-based conductive gel, yes. Some actually do not require it. Some EEG machines, but the ones we just showed you, it does. Okay, once a faculty told me that such gels causes hair fall. So are participants comfortable wherever they are used? So I don't know if it causes hair fall or not. I have never come across a participant who would complain of hair fall, but yeah, we have shampoos just in case the participants want to wash off their hair just after the experiment. We can do that. Do you think we'll be able to create a brain computer interface envisioned by Elon Musk? I think the entire world wants to know that answer. And there are actually other. Okay, we have Gaurav here as well, so he'll be also taking questions. Do you have an answer for this, Gaurav? Do you think we'll be able to create a brain computer interface envisioned by Elon Musk? Microphone.
Yeah, already have some BCI machines, but what Elon Musk is proposing is a bit hard because we don't understand how the sensory information transform into motor actions. So current BCI machines that we have use motor intention or movement activity directly from M1 or premotor areas, but uh, we don't actually understand how uh, the sensory information that about the world we are receiving is actually transforming into the motor action. So on that point, I don't think it will be very easy to make such BCI machines.
So can I add to that? Um,
Yes.
Yes, sir, sure.
Hi, folks. Um, so, I think the Elon Musk question keeps coming around all the time these days. Um, I think we need to break it down into sort of two components. One is the engineering aspect of it, and the second is the neuroscience side of it. Um, he has done an absolutely remarkable job when it comes to the engineering. I think the kinds of electrodes that Neuralink has been able to make in a fairly rapid amount of time is absolutely unbelievable. And I think so on that front, they've made huge advances. And it's not entirely surprising given that they're a fantastic sort of engineering company with Tesla and SpaceX and all of that. So it's not very surprising that they've got to that engineering sort of side of things. The neuroscience side of things is fairly rudimentary. Uh, so if you talk to neuroscientists about what they've been able to show, I think we were doing this 10 years ago. And I think what Gaurav says is true, that a lot of uh, stuff we still don't understand about the brain. So while we can record signals, and we've been able to do that for a long time, and do some sophisticated signal processing and move cursors on a screen, or in some cases go to the extent of driving a wheelchair. I don't think we've progressed too far from that. So a lot of what he wants to do in the neuroscience domain, I think we are still a long ways off. But even then, the engineering contributions that he has made are just fantastic. I think that's the way to look at this Neuralink issue.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming in and giving an answer. I would like to introduce Pratik sir. Now he's here. So he is a professor of cognitive science at IIT Gandhinagar and the principal investigator of the lab that we just demonstrated, Cola Lab. Would you like to take more questions, sir? More of the
Sure. Yeah,
communities?
yeah. I'm happy to answer, questions. There's
Sure.
some questions about, open source software and all that. I mean, these are all, uh, great initiatives. There is, in fact, a lot of push towards this. Uh, and, people generally write their own code to run the experiments that they want. I mean, we certainly do it in our lab. I mean, the base still is MATLAB, but I think a lot of custom programming is done across the world to run these labs. Fancy devices like built that we've purchased from a company in Canada. I mean, they again have custom proprietary software, of course, because it's you can't distribute this kind of stuff for free, because that's how you make money. But yeah, I think on so the data collection side still relies, I think, on a lot of custom software that's either built on MATLAB or some other platform like Simulink, things like that, LabVIEW. But on the analysis side, I mean, once you have the data, that you can do in a lot of open source software, and that's not very, very hard. So statistics, um, again, sort of statistics is further downstream, but even basic. So for instance, in our case, if you wanted to get movement kinematics out or do some inverse dynamics to understand forces and torques and things like that, that you can do fairly easily once you have the data using open source software. And of course, statistics is becoming the gold standard now. But again, there are many community led initiatives, um, just like R is, to analyze data now also. Yeah.
Thank you,
And there's a
sir.
question of fMRI. Um, it's becoming more common. Okay, some people are asking why aren't they as common. A lot of hospitals have them. Okay, I mean, that's clear. uh, but yeah, I mean, they're not as common for research yet, but that is changing. A lot of institutions in India um, are investing in fMRI machines. ISC Bangalore just put in one. I know there's another one. I don't know if it's up and running yet, but at the University of Allahabad Center for Behavioral and Cognitive Sciences, um, there's some other, there's this center, CBRI, I forget, in Lucknow, they have fMRI equipment. Um, and
PGI,
like
sir.
uh, people are saying here, it is expensive and it takes a lot of resources. So you can't just buy a device and just put it up in a room. There has to be sort of the custom civil work that has to be done. Radio shielding and things like that. All that has to be in place. So it's not just the cost of the equipment, but there's also added cost um, of setting up the facility and then maintaining it. Uh, and often, neuroscience research, perhaps all of you know, is at such a nascent stage in India that maybe an institution might have one or at most two people, let's say, doing fMRI work. We, for instance, at IIT Gandhinagar have Professor Krishna Prasad, who's perhaps the only one here, really. Uh, and so to make that kind of investment for one person is still a big challenge in India, right? I mean, uh, for instance, somebody, an administrator could say, oh, what if this person got a really lucrative job offer from somewhere else and left, and then what do you do with this piece of equipment that you put 20 crores to set up? What happens to that? So these are the kinds of issues that we are still faced with. It's not like places in the West where there would be 30 researchers on a single machine. So even if one left, it doesn't matter, and you can still continue to the machine continues to be used. So I think the more um, the more manpower we have in these domains, I think the more we will be forced to sort of invest in these somewhat more expensive devices and equipment. Yeah. Okay. Somebody's asking about these joining these labs. I mean, there are different ways. Okay, I think all of us are, and I see some other faculty from around the country uh, in the participant list also. So I think everybody should join in and pitch in. I think all of us are open to taking in students through different routes. Summer internships certainly are one way. 6 months. So a lot of institutes require um thesis work to be done at other institutions if the host, if the parent institute doesn't have the resources. So we've had some students come from the University of Rajasthan to do their thesis work here. Uh, I'm teaching a bunch of high schoolers this every Sunday for 8 Sundays uh, to engage with high school students. We've had some startups be interested in the lab. They're doing brain stimulation work. So there's different ways to get engaged. I mean, send any of us an email, and we'll be happy to respond. Of course, we get a lot of emails, and I'm sure my other colleagues, whoever is here, can attest to that. And we certainly cannot accommodate everybody. And I think there was a session, or there will be a session on, or somebody mentioned this, I think last weekend, where they said that um, I think Oded Rekavi said that when you write to people, just be specific. If you tell me I have done a master's in molecular biology and I want to join your lab, I'm going to say, we don't do molecular biology, sorry. So just look at what the lab does, show some interest, show some evidence that you've bothered to read a paper or to at least try, um, and propose something that is of interest to both the lab and you, right? And then certainly there could be um, more interest, and people would be open to hosting students. Look, we want to have a large presence in the field, right? I mean, in the country, we want to make sure that we spawn neuroscientists in the country. So we want bright students. Everybody is looking for bright students. Maybe some other faculty want to add to this. Uh, I don't want to be the only one talking. Uh, yeah, I'll shut up for a minute. If somebody doesn't speak, then I'll go to the next question. Yeah. Okay. Nobody spoke, so I'm going to continue taking a look at these questions. Backyard brains is mentioned. Backyard brains is fantastic. That little bonus equipment that you saw at the end, that was a backyard brains piece, and it wasn't described very well. But this is what it is you put, it's again, it's a kind of a BCI. Okay, it's kind of a BCI in the sense that, except that you've not put the electrodes up on the brain, on the scalp or whatever. You've put it on the muscles, and so now your brain is telling your arm to move. You're contracting your muscles. That signal is picked up, processed, and then connected to an electrical stimulator that is then connected to another person's uh, nerve. And so when you contract your muscles, or when you move, the other person's arm also moves. So it's a little bit sci-fi-ish. It's a fancy you know um, it's, a, it's, a, it's just a BCI of a different kind that's fairly cheap. I mean, Backyard Brains makes some very nice kits that are very, very cheap, but fun to do experiments with. So you could record, for instance, from cockroach legs and look at action potentials and things like that. um, and there's a whole bunch of other kits that they have. So it's a very nice company, and making nice products that actually work, not very expensive, and are fun to demo. For instance, to school children, or a lab tour or something like that. Um, yeah. Okay. Um, then there's somebody asking about degrees for cognitive science. I mean, we've had in our cognitive science master's program, uh, a whole range of people: philosophy to economics to statistics to engineering to biology to psychology, everything. So I think the field is such that you don't need to um, have a science degree necessarily. I think any background is okay generally. Um, then, yeah, okay. So somebody's mentioned about the going to the lab and playing games. So we are, we a lot of our research that we do in the cola lab specifically is gamified, okay, in some ways. So so you see this weird arrangement where the movement is in a certain plane, and then above that there's a mirror, and then above that there's a TV, everything mounted sort of horizontally. And the reason we do that is because we want to dissociate what you see from what you're actually doing. Okay, so you are making these movements on this tablet, let's say, or while holding on to this robotic device. um, but then what we show you on the screen can be different. So we can either match the feedback to be exactly like your own motion, or we can play with the feedback. And the way we are able to do that is because the mirror that we have in between blocks direct vision of the hand, so you can't see your hand, but we only show you feedback, and we tell you, oh, that's where your hand is, and then we can fake it. uh, and so we create these different environments that are fun for people. And you have to move in certain ways, but the feedback goes in different ways, and then you have to shoot targets on a screen and things like that. And it it becomes a lot of fun. the more complicated you make it, and while playing these games we record your motion and then look at how people learn in these different environments and things like that. So so that's I think gamification is important, we believe, because it keeps motivation levels high. And I think motivation is a huge part of learning that's not very well understood. And we don't bother about quantifying motivation either, but just to keep participants engaged in the task, we try and gamify it. So we'll give you points if you successfully shoot these targets and things like that. With this robotic device, what we are also able to do is, go a little bit farther. So now, as you're holding these handles have force sensors in them. Okay, so we can measure how hard you're squeezing on them, and we can also use it to apply forces. Okay, so if you apply certain forces on the handles, then we can make certain things move on the screen. So imagine, you squeezing on something and like a little feedback bar going up or down on the screen. And you can imagine, for instance, now using this for simple strength training in somebody who's had a stroke, something like that, right? So you make people squeeze harder, and because now you can fake this feedback. You can say, even if you're squeezing full strength, you can show only, you're only halfway there to the target. So you make people squeeze more, and then you titrate down that feedback different ways to get people go higher and higher. So I think gamification of the tasks is a nice way to keep people engaged, and also gets students motivated to run some of these experiments. um, okay, COVID. Let me skip this. I think COVID has affected everybody, and I don't want to get depressed talking about it. uh, so can people now, okay, keep in mind COVID again, lots of um, questions about COVID. I think we are collecting data, but just being very, very careful, sanitizing equipment after every use, making sure we don't overdo data collection, minimizing the number of subjects we test in a day, and things like that. So it has hampered the pace, but we are still open. We've got to do what we got to do. Um, okay. Uh, Somebody's created a cheaper version. I don't know of what, um, but there's a link that you can click and get to that. Um, okay, what advice would you give to someone who wants to pursue a career in cognitive science? Um, I think uh, I think it's a very, very exciting field. Okay, and IIT Gandhinagar in some ways was the pioneer in starting a master's program, at least amongst the IITs. I mean, there's been master's programs elsewhere in the country. CBCS Allahabad, for instance, had one. But amongst the IITs, we took the lead. It seems like there is growing interest now. IIT Delhi has started one. Um, IIT Kanpur has started one, and you'll hear from Arjun tomorrow. I think he's at IIT Kanpur. So and there's some master's programs in neuroscience, for instance, at NBRC, Gurgaon, and things like that. So I think uh, I think it's a very exciting field. There are different career options. I think most of our students end up going into research, if not immediately, maybe after a year or two. Most people join a PhD program. Um, our coursework is very diverse. So we have about 6 core courses. One is the fundamental neuroscience course that I teach, the cognitive psychology, computation and cognition um, course. There's a research methods statistics course. Then there's a experimental techniques course, and there's a philosophy course. So we lay the foundation, and then there's a huge emphasis on research. So every student does a master's thesis that's required. A lot of credits are reserved for that. And then once students graduate, some go in industry, not everybody, but there's a lot of interest from industry in recruiting cognitive science graduates, especially the advertising industry, companies that are focused on, let's say, inducing behavioral change in people, um, and things like that. So there are industries. Some of them have tried their hands at education startups, but mostly, people go and get a PhD. And again, we've had students that have gone all over the world. So yeah, the field itself is new. There is growing awareness of it. More and more students are inclined to take it, because again, the background really does not matter. You can pick it up. I mean, my own example, I went from electrical engineering into all of this, so it's possible. uh, so yeah, and then there are jobs. I think there are jobs now, if you come back with decent training. um, there are jobs. So I think it's a good field to be in now. In fact, I don't know if this is running anymore, but the government of India, at least until a few years ago, DST, which funds a lot of research, had a separate initiative for cognitive science research. So I don't think that's active anymore, but yeah, for a while, they supported a lot of this, and supported conferences and events and things like that. I mean, I myself had a grant from DST, Cognitive Science Initiative. So again, there's support, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Anubhama has something. Um, yeah, she agrees that the letter cannot be generic. I mean, this is about careers or internship opportunities or something like that. Um, she says that convey.
Hello.
Yeah. Oh.
Hello.
Oh, yeah, Anubhama. Yes.
Hi. Hi everyone. I was, I tried to unmute myself then, but anyways, so yeah, with respect to, when you're applying to for internships and stuff, make sure to write a nice succinct email. Avoid generic things like I'm a team player and things like that, because everybody writes that. And also read about what the lab is doing, but make sure not to copy paste when you write an email from the lab website. I'm interested in this particular sentence, so that means that's a little lazy. So make sure to kind of get your own understanding of what the lab is doing, and if you don't really understand, it's okay to ask, could I learn more about your research and things like that. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I think Poonam Thakur is also here. Maybe she can also, add her views on this. If she wants. Yeah.
Hi everyone. Yeah, it is. Sorry, I was really figuring out how to share my presentation for my talk. I missed out, but I think question is about the internship requests that students are sending, right?
Well, generally, how do students approach PIs if they want to be part of the lab? I think that's the.
Yeah, so actually,
Okay.
few weeks ago on Twitter, this was also a question of discussion, because I think some students wrote an article about that, a lot of PIs just do not respond. And many PIs then shared their views that why are they not responding, or many of them do try to respond, but the volume of bad emails is so big compared to the good ones that it becomes, a very, very difficult task to keep it up. So I think, yeah, as Anupama just shared, one thing is to really write a mail that really reflects that you care about this work. And yeah, a lot of time it's just a copy paste from a website. I'm interested in this and this. And sometimes students are writing things like, okay, I am I wrote to you and I'm expecting a positive response as soon as possible. So you also have to think that it's a request of internship, then you also need to be a bit polite. I understand many of you do not get any formal training and how to go about things, but Google is your best friend in that case. Always Google how to write an email, even this much basic, how to address a mail. Just Google every single thing and you will find resources. Some blogs and things have been written by some people. Vishu Guttal from IISc, he had written something, and Karishma Kaushik and some people from IISc Pune, they have together written a blog. I am hosting links to all of these on my lab website. So, please, before writing to me, do read this. I want you to succeed and I want you to write a good email. But still, unfortunately, I don't know why people seem to ignore it. Yeah, and also one has to think that right now a lot of people are writing, but institutes are not allowing external students to come to the campuses, right? So unfortunately, this semester and upcoming semester, it's not going to be very practical, and then you are not likely to hear yes unless institutes are allowing external students to come and work on the campus, which I think is very, very rare at this moment. But yeah, I would highly recommend Google.
I think that was really very informative for all the students present here. To write, I mean, writing emails is, I think, also an art, and to specify what you actually want from the lab and go through their work is also important. Now we have Poonam ma'am, and Shresht will be moderating her talk. So over to you, Shresht.